Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. It's Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab. I am so glad to have you back visiting what me and Chris are up to today. And so in today's video, we are sharing you 8 furniture flips, makeovers. These are just simple, as in they didn't need a lot of fixing. So today's video, we are sharing with you how we got these painted up. We did a little bit of bling on them. We're gonna call it decoupage paper bling and get these ready to resell. So as we're coming into the holiday season, we are getting ready for an open house on the 1st of November where our 2 retail booths are. So we don't really have any finished stock build up in our inventory. So we went through, tried to find the items that didn't really need a lot of work, just some painting. Of course, in the hopes that the open house is a successful weekend because there would be store-wide discounts. So yes, all these so far cost $6.09. They are thrifted from Goodwill. I cannot pass up, barely, if they don't need a lot of work, pairs of end tables. Though I do offer them separate, and I really would like somebody to buy them together. And I know this looks really rough, but they're very sturdy. It's just the finish is coming off of them. Especially these big chunky ones. Oh, I was so happy to run across a pair of them. Now I'm not sure right off what the price was, but I know they were the $10 and under price. But look at those beautiful legs, and these have a drawer, and these are nice heavy end tables. So I definitely love that insert that is cut in the middle. I definitely have a great idea to share with you all on that. Nothing says these have been sitting around in the workshop longer than they should be with all those layers of dust. Nope, we're going to be cleaning these anyway, so I didn't even blow it off for you. So this is also another piece that was in our hoard, and I know it doesn't go along with the end tables, but we don't have another dresser ready to go in case one sells. So there was nothing needed to be done to this other than an updating in the paint job and some missing hardware, but that's not a terrible thing to have to fix. This little entryway table was in a garage sale haul that I got a discount for buying a whole bunch of items. So with the $15 price tag, just ignore that. It was really only $5. We're going to start right off. This is a team effort with me and my husband, Chris. If you're new to our channel, this is something most of the time we do it together. So especially when it comes to furniture flipping. So yep, we're going to remove that hardware right off the bat at first. And along with the Goodwill tag on any of these pieces of furniture, along with Mr. Smiley Snicker that's been here for a while. And as I'm getting them clean, we're assessing the drawers just because it looks good. Sometimes there are pieces and parts or the mechanism that helps it slide, the glides that slide the drawers in and out, maybe a little wonky, but as we're cleaning them, we're also checking that out. That's a good reason, not just to clean the drawer fronts, but clean the entire drawer, so that way you can assess if anything is broken or missing. You see on that little entryway table, it was missing the thing that glides it in and out and keeps it stable. There's always those little hidden parts of a drawer that there's many reasons why a drawer does not slide in and out properly. You just have to assess each piece and how it was put together. And definitely screw holes that don't have anything attached to them are a clue. Now, as I said, I am just getting all these cleaned. Minimal prep is going to be done to these pieces, and that is just we know that bleach will bleach wood, and that just looks like a bleach spot. And then along with simple drawer fixes are these simple glides, levelers. A lot of times when we thrift these pieces, for some reason, and that's why they're wonky and they're wobbly, is because some of those protectors on the bottoms that help them slide, protect your wood floor, are missing. So definitely, if you think the piece is a little bit wonky, flip it over and look to see how many of those are missing. So unfortunately, even though they didn't need anything glued and clamped back together, some of these pieces, like these tables, have seen their day, and they have too many deep grooves in them that I don't want my finish to look like that. And it may just be the way that the table was made, because there's a lot of them. So maybe that distressed look they were going for, but I'm going to go ahead and sand them as smooth as I can get. And I know that it's going to be a veneer board because I can already tell where there was some water damage that I might go down a little bit far, but I definitely want to make it a smooth surface. They're not terribly deep, so I'm just using a 220 sandpaper on my Black & Decker mouse sander.
After I blew all that sanding dust off and re-washed it and let it dry, I'm going to go ahead and seal this in. Now that I've changed the porosity of what the material is on the top of this, we've got a little bit of finish that's left. We got some open wood, and then we have some of the press board that was underneath the veneer board showing. So when you go to paint it, it's going to make an uneven looking paint job. So to seal this in, I'm just going in with a couple coats of shellac, and that'll even out their porosity. You could do a primer also if you wanted to, but the color that we're going to paint is a dark, and so we're just going to go in with the spray can of shellac. Now everything got a light scuff sanding just to make sure that the finish, especially on the main parts of the tops, were even. A light coat of the shellac on the other pieces just to make sure that it was going to adhere well, especially when it comes to the top of these pieces. So for today's trial, now I tried the milk paint in the package that was white, and I had to mix it with the powder, but you know, I am a huge Rustoleum fan, and I'm a touch and feel type of person, and so you can buy the Rustoleum milk paint here locally at Menards, or I can order it off Amazon, which I did both. And so we bought a gallon container because we wanted to use their bigger sprayer that you have to stick it into a gallon of paint. So Menards sells extra little empty paint cans. You'd think we'd have had one laying around, but we didn't. So it took 3 coats to fill up that smaller, because you do water it down to go into this Graco sprayer. That way, this milk paint said it was minimal prep. You didn't have to prime. And yes, we are just doing the Eclipse color, which is a black in color. So I'm going to test out this milk paint and see how this milk paint works. And I know that I'm not going for a chippy look. I know this one does not do that chip and crackle, and that's the look I'm going for. But I definitely, yes, I do like my ready to use black onyx, but I wanted to test out a different paint on these items. So with having so many items to get painted up, definitely having a powerful sprayer like this is a blessing. So yes, this is you don't even have to have an air compressor type of paint sprayer, but oh my gosh, it will just devour this. Once you get that consistency of your paint mixture down to a science, basically, where when you lift up your paint skewer, that the paint is not laying on top of the paint, and it's totally mixing in. Just a little bit of water goes a long way. And though we're not going to show you the finished product of a couple of these pieces, but while we were doing this chest is one of the pieces that we've had in our booth forever. Nobody's ever touched it. I dropped it down on the price a couple times. So yep, this is one of those cases where I say if it doesn't sell, it is just paint. You can clean it off, sand it down a little bit, and repaint it. Along with this little table also, this is one that I had done, and I had done a water slide transfer on, and yep, there again, dropped the price down a couple times. Nobody touched it, so let's bring it on home and change its color. I could share with you that when we were doing our US 12 garage sale and we would have not lost power and been able to get into our booth to take these 2 pieces out, I would have tried selling these 2 pieces at the garage sale. Let's go back into painting all these end tables now. Even an end table can be turned on a Lazy Susan, as you see. Turntable, still be able to carry it on and off. It just makes it so much easier to be able to get that 360 spray of an item. So after getting the hardware cleaned up with some Dawn dish soap and hot water and just let them dry, definitely on both sides, we're just getting it spray painted up with some Rustoleum in the flat black. I told you I was a Rustoleum fan. And then we did find 2 other little knobs that match to complete the set at the top. That is one of the reasons that I am always checking them out at the thrift store. Any knobs, any type of hardware, just to have it in our stash. So here's a little bonus in this video. So while we were waiting for paint to dry and I'm looking at my candlestick thrift hoard stash, I'm like, I'm out of black candlestick. So assessing how much paint we had left, I had picked up 4 quarts of paint to do this project. I got 2 from Menards and 2 from the Amazon. And I'm like, you know what? I really would like to get these painted up. And he already had the paint in the sprayer. So all I have to do is get these things detagged and cleaned up. Why I'm at it, why not make one of my coffee tree mugs a black one? So this set of 3 is a beautiful, oh my gosh, these are beautiful detailed candlesticks, but I am one to always, if I can, take those little prongy things off that hold a candle in place. That way it gives you a little bit more opportunity. You can use the flameless candles, or you can put a pumpkin like in the season right now, or some Christmas decor on it. You don't always have to just use it for candles. And since these 2 candlesticks had a nice size base and I knew that I can pop that little insert that protects the wood from the candle out, I thought, you know what, I have one of these left over from a project and I have another unfinished one in my stash in the house, that why don't we make a little interest on these? Since Chris was in the process of spraying the other pieces down when I came up with this idea, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and just clean these off using the awesome cleaner from the Dollar Tree store. It does work just fine, especially for little projects like this. So this milk paint from Rustoleum is actually covering really well where black usually does anyway. So really I think I'm going to be able to get just 1 coat on these and then flip them over on the other side to get any of that little area that might have been missed with that first coat. But it's adhering really well. So far I'm impressed with it. Now that the 1 coat of the underside has dried, like I said, it is covering really well. And now we can go ahead and Chris can get the top part of these painted up also. Okay, so through my research of the Rust-Oleum milk paint is that I could water distress it. So why not go ahead and give it a try? So I just have a bucket of hot water, just a rag, and we'll see how this goes. Now, this is just after they dried. I didn't, just a couple hours after they dried. I did not let them sit because I know the longer the paint's on, the harder it is going to be to get to distress. So I'm just going through with just my finger and the rag, and then I'm letting it hit all those sharp edges, getting it wet down, letting that open it back up. But you can see it's already starting to distress the way that I want it. So as I'm working on these pieces, and I was really just thinking, oh, let's just get them painted black and get them out the door. But I couldn't help myself because I am just in love with decoupage paper, and I still have some original pieces left in my stash. So all I kept thinking about this dresser was that 5-2B going, I think it would fit over that decal, even though I did not make that smooth or anything. I think we can work with it. I just definitely think the shape of this is a God wink moment, and it'll fit on these dresser drawers. No, I'm not going to be doing all the dresser drawers. There's definitely not enough paper for that. But if you notice on this dresser, it has 2 of the top drawers that are separated from the bottom 3 ones. So this piece of decoupage paper is just crying to be put on here. So I'm just cutting off the parts that I'm going to be using on this dresser. See what I mean? It's a perfect fit. If I can't give that a God wink moment, I don't know what is a God wink moment. But to apply it, I'm just going to be using some polycrylic. Now, I get asked a lot the difference between polycrylic, Mod Podge. Do you just need something to glue your paper down? So I'm just making sure that it's centered, that my B fits, that my 5 fits, that my 2 fits. I can just stress it and make if that round part is showing more. I'm not worried about that. I just definitely want to make sure that I'm getting those numbers in. And yep, I know there's a decal at the top, guys, but you know, it's going to give a little bit more extra interest because this was an in process that I did not even plan on putting anything over it until I started working with this piece. And I'm going to go ahead, I don't mind any wrinkles. I like it to look old and wrinkly. I like to sand those to make it help when I go to distress it and look aged. So I'm going to go ahead right off the bat and put the polycrylic on top of this. Now I notice if I wait for it to dry and then put the top coat on, it lays flatter. So it's just a look that you're going for. So now when it comes to these 2 corner squares, since I cut my paper apart, I can use a little bit of that wording that was at the top of the paper. So when I go to lay these down, I'm going to go ahead and center it using that little bit of that wording, just for some more interest. And the nice thing about cutting it apart is I can pick and choose what I want to use. Now when it comes to that second drawer, look at it fit, so I can get that wording right onto that second drawer. So I'm just making sure that it's centered again. And I did go ahead and fill in the holes, though in the busyness of it all, I used the spackling to fill in the holes, but I didn't paint over them. One of those in-process rookie mistakes, but there again, it'll be okay because your interest is that decoupage paper. And I know you're all looking at those little white spots like eyeballs looking straight at you, but don't worry yourself too much. I am not perfect either, guys. Well, then now I can't help myself but go test out that little side table drawer to see if one of these two, oh, look at it fits. So yeah, this is getting a little bit of decoupage paper too. Now, though I'm not going to share gluing it down and cutting it off, it's just like the first process. You cut and hope that you have all your letters showing. What I'm sharing with you is that Black & Decker little handy thing that my drawers are on. I thrifted that for Chris a while ago. It's just, they called it an extra little workbench. So if you're out thrifting and you do furniture or something that you need to lift off and don't want to bend over to paint on drawer tops, this has definitely saved my back, being able to have it raised up and not being onto the ground, because once the drawer's on the work tables, it's way too tall for me to reach the top. So I just thought I would share that with you all. Yeah, it was something that I thrifted for $5, I think. So yeah, like that hardware, don't ever underestimate what you can find at a thrift store. So when I went into the house in my stash in my craft room to get that piece of decoupage paper, I also have had this piece of decoupage paper, though the thing I didn't like about it was those beans. That just is a personal preference, but I definitely liked, I'm like, oh, this has that insert. Oh, I think that I can make this look like old shipping, old, yes. So yep, I'm going for it, though I don't have 2 pieces of this, that I can only do the 1 table at a time, but I did get right onto Etsy and order another one once I decided that I was going to use this. So I'm just going to be sharing the process of just the one for you in the video, but it's going to be a double process because I'm going to do the other one to look exactly the same. So I'm just using that polyacrylic again to apply it. I'm not cutting it down first. I'm going to go ahead and let it get glued down first. So I really want to keep that polyacrylic as much as I can in this inner square. And when it comes to getting it all glued on, I'm just going to run my finger along that edging, my fingernail along the edging. I know that some of this paper is wet and it'll probably tear too much if I try cutting it right off the bat. For this piece, I waited an hour or so. I did not put more polyacrylic over the top because I knew I needed to cut this off. So I just have this is a metal ruler. Yep, I thrifted it, guys. And then, and a sharp X-Acto knife, and then just gingerly going in there and making sure that I cut. It's not completely set up completely, so I just want to make sure that I'm not just tearing it and pulling it apart. Now I'll go back over it with a coat of the Polycrylic, making sure that it's good and on there. And definitely knowing that this is a side table, this is probably going to get a few coats of Polycrylic. You all know that us crafters do not like to waste anything, so yeah, why not add a little bit of the leftover wording that I'm not using on the front, not to waste it. So I'm just going to make the executive decision to cut that with the leftover coffee word and the bean off, and then kind of center it appropriate that you know that it's kind of coffee, but then you know that the word is bean. But yeah, I don't want to waste it, so why not add a little bit more detail onto it? A little bit goes a long way, but I think it's not too much. So now that I played around with some decoupage paper for a while, now I better get to these in before they dry too much and I won't be able to wet distress them. So yes, go in and see where I said this dresser has that beautiful detail that just separates those two top drawers from the bottom 3 drawers. So just a perfect accent for that decoupage paper. But now I just want to go in and give it some distressing, show off some of that wood underneath. So far I have no complaints about this Rustoleum milk paint whatsoever. I've been able to control it perfectly the way I like to wet distress, just like the white linen chalk paint. And then yep, I don't mind a little bit over distressing, especially when it comes to see how easily it's coming off. Like I said, they've only sat for a few hours before I started to distress them, so the longer they sit, probably just like the chalk paint, the harder it is to get off. It definitely made distressing this area a lot easier than trying to get in there with sandpaper. I'm thinking the candlesticks are just going to be just as easy to distress, and yep, they are. Like I said, I don't mind. Most of these are real wood, so that's coming off, but also you can go in and control a little bit more. These have sat a little bit longer because I had all those other pieces to do first, and so I'm just going in just to save my hands, because sometimes you have to rub a lot with that rag to get it to distress. So a little bit of sandpaper will definitely, I was showing you my manicure, will help you. I'm like, oh, just like that white linen where it gets all over my hands. Yep, I've got a very bad black manicure going on there. The candlesticks, I went ahead and switched over to just the 220 sandpaper. It just makes it a little bit easier, especially when it comes to all these little details of these candlesticks, to get in there and just rub it off. So now I'm going to go ahead and get the one natural one of these little rounds that you get at Hobby Lobby, stained up with my Waverly wax mixture. And my Waverly wax, antiquing wax mixture that is watered down, it's 1/4 of the little pickle jar of the antiquing wax, and then I fill it up with the just water, and then I put a half of plastic spoonful of the ink paint in it, and that just gives it more of an aged look. I think of more that barn washed look I'm going for. Now the other piece I had already done in just the straight watered down antiquing wax, so hopefully when I apply a little bit more of this over that it will match, and I think they matched up pretty well. So to get these glued up, I'm just going to go in with some Starbond in the accelerator to dry. Now this is the thick one, so just to attach these, now I have not sealed these in, polycrylic them or anything like that right now. I want to do it while it was raw. That I don't think it really matters, but I was just going to polycrylic these two pieces together anyway. So you can use this two different ways. You can spray directly onto the glue that you just applied or put it on the piece that you're going to, but I want to put it on the piece I'm going to, that way I can really see where I am centering and give me a little bit of play time, because you only got like 15 seconds, and then I'm just going to press down firmly and make sure that it's healed. That activator, that spray, stays a little bit wet, and as it's drying in that 15 seconds, that glue, that chemical reaction, it makes it dry. So it should be good and on there. After wiping off your glue chip, don't forget to put a little bit of Vaseline so that lid does not glue it onto it. The excess decoupage paper off, I'm just gonna, just take some 220 sandpaper and just go back and forth and cut that right off. I want the edges to be a little bit distressed anyway, so I'm just going in after that has dried overnight and then just taking that sandpaper. I don't want it to look like a sharp edge, especially since I probably didn't cut it like a manufacturer's perfectly straight. I want it to look a little bit perfectly imperfect, so I don't mind if a little bit more chips off. Like I said, I want it to make it look like it's been worn and on there for a while. Then I'll take that sandpaper over the entire top of it, also making sure that any of those wrinkles are now laying down. If there's any texture, I don't mind that it ages it a little bit more. Now that I've got that sanded, you can see that bright white of where the decoupage paper was sanded. So I'm going back in with the same milk paint, just a little bit of a paintbrush. I want to make it look like that paper has been worn off. That's why I don't want that crisp, sharp edge, just a look that I'm going for. So I'm just going back in and touching all those edges up. And then I'll go back in with my stenciling brush and just kind of blend it up, making sure that there's no random pattern really. I don't want to cover up the wording by any means, so just little bitty paintbrushes and a little bit of just what is visual to your eye, just blending it up. So it'll be the same exact thing when it comes to this dresser front also. So I'm just going in with that 220 sandpaper, going along those edges and cutting that excess paper off. That way I'm getting that distressing around the edges that I want. And that way I know that I didn't accidentally cut it too short, trying to guesstimate before gluing it down. And then I definitely want to make sure that it is good and dried before doing this, because it's not as thin as a tissue paper or cardstock by any means, or a fabric, but this tissue paper definitely, if I wanted to, it would pull when it was wet, but that was not the look that I was going for. I want to control my distressing around the edges a little bit more than that. Then it's the exact same process before, but for this one, because there's more of a lip, I can go in with a stencil brush, meaning that these are more raised up, that I have a little bit more surface to do with a bigger brush. But yep, the same thing, just going in, covering up that little white area of the decoupage paper and just giving it that rubbed up, off kind of look. Now to sand this one's going to be a little bit more on the difficult side, because that's an insert. It's completely flat with the other piece, but I'm going to go for it and give it a try, because I really don't want it to just look like I just put a piece of paper down. So I'm going in with a 80 grit, because on this one I had put that polycrylic on top of it, 2 coats. I wanted to make sure that it was good and on there. Probably put another one as we work along. So I'm just trying to stay right inside the paper without taking too much of the lettering off. That one created a lot of sandy dust, so I'm just going to go ahead and blow it off. I'm not too worried about if I loosened up any of the pieces right at the moment. So I'm going to go back in just like before, like the other decoupage paper. And I don't know if I'm all saying it wrong, but it's just the way I say that word of the paper. So I'm just going back in with the same technique just to make sure that it looks aged. It's still going to get a couple more coats of polycrylic, so if some of those edges have pulled up, I'm not worried right now. Now for the drawer front, I just cut off the excess using an X-Acto knife and a metal spatula. That way I don't have really a lot of room to go in and try to distress, so I'll just go ahead and just fake that distressing around this outer edge. So just going in and putting a little bit of paint and then just fading it in with my fingers. My fingers are, I don't know about you all how your hands stay clean during a project, but mine do not. Because we water distressed this was a little bit different from our normal black that we would have done. We would have usually painted it black and then sealed it in with a top coat, then distressed it with sandpaper. But since this was water distressed, able to be, we are now going in after we distressed them and sealing them in. So Chris just put some polycrylic into one of the Harbor Freight hoppers and then is just spraying it onto the pieces. Now to finishing all these pieces off, I need to go back in and open up that polycrylic a little bit just using some steel wool. So yep, more sanding, but that polycrylic is a good top coat and that's what you want it to be. But I need to open it up a little bit because if you are a follower of our channel, you know I'm going to be going in with some antiquing wax. And if I don't open up this polycrylic, the antiquing wax is just going to be sitting on top of the polycrylic. So I need something for that antiquing wax to grab onto. So yep, gotta go back in and I gotta do some more sanding. And actually this is actually a quick flip because you're not doing multicolors. This is only over a 2-day period, so really not bad as furniture flipping goes for this many pieces. And definitely being able to spray it definitely helps. So now it's time to apply the Waverly antiquing wax. Oh my goodness, this will just take these pieces all to another level. Just the black is good, but a little bit of antiquing wax for me is a lot better. So just apply it on and then just let it soak in. That's why we open up that polycrylic and then wipe off any excess, but it definitely just takes it to another level where we've distressed it. It definitely makes that wood pop. This is the reason I don't mind wrinkles in my paper, because once I sanded that smooth, you can see a little bit of that white going through. I wasn't worried about that because I knew I was going to put some of this antiquing wax on top of that, and that's just going to tie this whole piece together and make it look like that paper has always been there. What a difference it took on these little side tables. These were probably a little questionable, you all thought at the beginning, but look at them now with that black and that antiquing wax. So I ended up spraying 1 coat of polycrylic on the top of this. I wanted to make sure that that milk paint didn't distress off, and I also, there again, I want to make sure that this decoupage paper is good and on there. So after that polycrylic was dry, I gave it a light sanding with some steel wool to open up that polycrylic, and now I'm going back in with the antiquing wax. I was going to be antiquing wax this entire piece at first. So as I'm applying it, I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I like all that brown on that paper. I don't know. So right now I'm just trusting my process and I'm just getting it on. Though it looks okay, but I definitely wanted it to have more of an aged look, so Varathane Finishing Wax and the clear to the rescue. So I'm just going to go into that centerpiece and then, yep, I'm taking some of that antiquing wax off of that. That wasn't really, I didn't want to take away. I liked the white of the paper on this. So yep, sometimes you just have to play with things a little bit until you figure them out. And then I will be going back in and adding some more of the antiquing wax around the edges, just a little bit more control. So we lucked out in our stash, and we still had, because I changed out the 2 hardware pieces where one was missing on the top of the dresser. I didn't want to put the poles back on because that would cover up all this pretty paper. So we ended up having 4 matching poles of the hardware pieces, the knobs, to put on this. So Chris is just drilling me some new holes to apply them to. And then to finish these drawers up, I'm going to be putting some contact paper in. This is just a nice little newspaper print that I got off Amazon, though it's in French, but you know, it just has a nice color to it and just some general wording that I think definitely ties in with the decoupage paper. So I always start off with that manufacturer's cut, that pretty cut right towards the front of the drawer, and then I gingerly work all the wrinkles and the air bubbles out, and then when I'm taking the contact paper, use my nail to kind of squirt around the whole sides, then I go in and release that pressure on the corners by just taking the scissors to snip it, and then cutting off the excess using an X-Acto knife and a metal spatula. And the finishing touch is to put these little gliders, stabilizers, whatever you want to call them, back onto the bottom. That way they can slide around, you know that they're nice and level. And you can buy this pack on Amazon for pretty cheap.
hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you enjoyed the furniture makeovers. Yes, it is the line of furniture flipping, and for us, usually we have very needy projects. So we picked out what was the easiest ones that we could get a whole bunch of group working on the stash, trying to get ready for the holiday season. We have an open house coming up the 1st of November for our antique mall where our booth is, so we want to make sure we had stock just in case something sells. You can always hope. So that way we have some stock. And yes, black has been selling for us. The decoupage paper, oh my goodness, has been selling. Yes, I ordered more, so I'm just waiting for some more to come. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, tell me what your favorite piece was that we did today. And leave me a like so YouTube knows that you like this kind of content and you're checking us out for the first time. Hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know when we've uploaded a new video. And we'll see you next time, guys, and you can see what we're up to. Bye.